Well, let's get Damien in
right
here.
in, yeah.
We've been very excited about this all morning.
Yeah.
One of the Memphis Three, Damien Echols, promoting his new book. Hey, Damien.
What's up, man?
Welcome to the show.
Take a seat.
We've been looking forward to this all morning, sir. All morning.
Thank you.
How you
Nice
doing,
to meet you, brother.
Nice to meet you.
There you go, bro.
Oh,
Good to see you out and about.
thank you.
Absolutely.
This your first one of the day?
It is, yeah. I'm getting to the point where I'm sort of sleepwalking through everything.
Really?
So I can't even remember
It's gonna be a
anymore what
drag.
I'm really doing.
How many interviews have you done? I mean, it's got to be 100 interviews since you, or more than that even.
I can't even count anymore.
Yeah.
I think originally, just the day of the book signing, they had me scheduled to do 14 in one day.
Jesus.
Wow.
That's crazy.
But I mean, even going far back to the time where you were in jail, I mean, it just seems like, everybody wanted to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. It's, well, it really, it's what got us out of prison. Just the fact that the media and the people on the street cared. I never had any faith in the system whatsoever. I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt they would kill us.
Wow.
The only thing that I did have faith in, that I never lost faith in, was the people who kept following the case, who cared about it.
No, you have to know also that there are people in prison right now that know they're innocent, and there's really no recourse. Why do you think you guys really kind of got where people picked up your case and put it in the public eye?
I think it started off with the Paradise Lost movies. People would see those and identify with them in some way. They would think, this could have been me. This could have happened to me. I could have been in this situation. But then
Can I stop you for a second? Because Air makes a good... But how did the movie even get made? There's probably a lot of interesting stories with guys in jail, but they're never going to get their documentary.
Right.
Going back to Ant's point.
Well, that actually started because of the initial media reaction whenever... Well, it started off when the head of the HBO documentary division saw a small article in the New York Times about a satanic killing in Arkansas. So she sent a film crew down there thinking it was an open and shut case, that they're going to get this case on film of these guys who had committed these murders as an act of as part of a satanic ritual.
Let's get the monsters on video.
Exactly. They thought it was just going to be this huge sensational thing. And then whenever they got down there, they started filming, and they said, wait a minute, that isn't
Something's
what
up
this is.
here.
This is something else.
Yeah.
The first documentary, though, really doesn't show you guys as innocent. So how did that kind of get the ball rolling where people wanted to come to your defense?
Yeah, I was up in the air after the first one. I didn't know how to feel. It didn't look like, it was like, these guys don't look really guilty. I wasn't 100% convinced,
Right.
though.
It wasn't like, oh, my God, what are they doing in prison?
Yeah.
That was kind of the whole point of it. They didn't want it to be biased in any direction. They just wanted to capture exactly what was happening in the courtroom. And that's what spoke to so many people, the fact that they came away not knowing whether you're guilty or innocent, and that's not what the court of law is supposed to be. The court of law is supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
That has to make you, chuckle at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You when you look back on the whole process, and is there anybody you can find that you dislike the most out of that whole thing? I mean, would it be the original trial judge or the prosecutor, or the appeals, the prosecutor who finally came out at the end and I guess offered the Alfred plea? Who among all those people do you kind of really have the most dislike for, if anybody?
I guess if I sat around thinking about it, it would be all of them.
Yeah.
There were so many of them that played a huge role in trying to murder me, and that's a hard thing to get past. That's a hard thing to get over. The judge especially, even to this day, even after the DNA evidence started coming out, he still to this day denies that there is any new evidence.
Because it makes him look bad.
Exactly.
And to exchange your own saving face for people's lives is amazing. And this is a person who supposedly is in a place of, power, respect, and supposed to be fair and equal. Just astounding.
Well, he's a politician. In society, we're sort of fed this belief that these people, judges, prosecutors, attorney generals, they have these jobs because they're somehow moral people. And in actuality, they are politicians, the same as senators, the same as
advancing their careers.
They will do and say anything they have to in order to win that next election.
Literally leaving a wake of dead people.
Exactly.
To try to get up that next notch.
Exactly.
Disgusting.
And when you're dealing with the local media, I mean, you have to take into consideration that the media is under no obligation to tell you the truth. They're a business, and just like any other business, their number one priority is to make a profit. So come election cycle, these politicians are pumping millions of dollars into this local media pool. I, on the other hand, am giving them absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So whose side are they going to spend this?
Yeah, that revenue coming in during election years. I mean, they're spending, like you said, millions on advertising. Amazing.
When you were sentenced to death, too, I was wondering this, too. Like, the original moment they had said, okay, this is when we're going to give you the lethal injection, and obviously it passed. What were you doing at that moment when you knew that that's what was quote-unquote supposed to be happening in the system's eyes? Like, were you looking at the clock, or did you just sleep through the night, or were you aware, like, right now, I should actually not be alive if they got their way?
My original execution date was May 5th of 1994, and it was one of those things that you don't know what to do with it. You know, there are very few things in life you're ever going to have of that magnitude, and you just it's like you can't get handholds in it. You know, you try to think about it, but you can't get your mind around it. The fact that at this moment right now, these people are supposed to be murdering me. Wow. That if not for getting the stay of execution, these people would be murdering me right now.
And you feel like you know, the worst part is that you know you didn't do it.
Yeah. That and I mean, that's the everyday thing. Every time you're beaten by a guard, every time anything bad is going on, it's the fact that you know I was never supposed to be here in the first place, and that's almost worse than what it is you're going through.
Oh man!
How were the guards or the inmates? Because, you know, I mean, I've never spent time in prison, and what was their reaction to you? Because it was such a high-profile case. And who did you find treated you with some respect or dignity, and who didn't?
Well, when you're on death row, the prisoners there, it's different than every other part of the prison. There's a sort of solidarity there just because you have a common enemy. You know, it's you're sort of banded together more than the rest of the prison just because you're all fighting for your lives against the people trying to kill you. So anytime I was in fear of my life in prison, it was never from a prisoner. Every single time it was from guards.
And they took out their anger.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just because they can. You know,
Yeah.
whenever I first got there, they decided they were going to give me a welcome to the neighborhood party. Oof. So they took me to the part of the prison they call the hole. It's like this really dark part of the prison where in the summer it can get up to 120 degrees and you're in complete isolation and they can do anything they want to you. And for the next 18 days, they beat the living hell out of me. They used to come in at about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and they'd chain me to the bars of the cell and beat me with nightsticks. And they beat me so bad at one point I started to piss blood.
Oh, fuck.
And the only reason they didn't kill me was because a deacon from the Catholic Church who used to come in bringing communion to the other prisoners found out about it, and he went to the warden and said, I know what you're doing. I know you're killing this guy, and if it doesn't stop, I'm going to go public. I'm going to tell people about it. And that's the only reason they didn't kill me.
Didn't you have an incident with the warden, too, himself? Didn't the warden himself participate?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He choked me. They took me up into the warden's office one night. It was the warden and 2 guards, and while the guards were beating me, the warden was choking me, kicking me.
Unfucking believable.
It's, you know, that was one of the reasons that I took this. People asked, did you have any reservations about taking this deal, you know, the Alfred plea at the end? And the answer is no, because I was dying. You know, my health had gotten so bad over the years. I've gained 60 pounds since I've been out of prison.
Wow.
Did your relationship with the guards ever get better as the case got more notoriety and people started thinking, well, you know, maybe this guy is innocent? Did any of the guards change their opinion on you?
No. They don't care.
They didn't care.
One way or another, it's all the same to them. You know, you're just somebody else there.
What was the warden thinking? Were you acting up in prison?
No, it was just because he saw me on TV. The prisons, they hate whenever any sort of media attention is drawn to the prison whatsoever.
Sure.
And like you were just saying, you know, people were wanting to come in and do interviews and stuff with me from the very beginning, and he did not like that at all. He saw that as me bringing attention onto the prison. You know, right before I got out, the past year before I got out, was the brutality had escalated like 100-fold because one of the guards at another prison had been involved in a beating where an inmate was beaten so bad he lost an eye. And the media got wind of it and wrote a few newspaper stories, and the administration said, okay, we got to get this guy out of here. So instead of firing him, they promote him to warden and send him to my prison.
Oh, man.
And that's the reason they don't want, you know, the media attention.
Yeah, yeah.
You talked to, by the way, your book, where he's promoting, Damien's promoting Life After Death. And I blew. I'm almost finished. I got like 30 pages left. You're an amazing writer. And I know that you talk about not wanting to be a freak show. Like, you don't want people just looking at you like, okay, here's the guy who went to jail for this. And I have to be honest, the writing stands up on its own. Like, it was really interesting to read about these experiences before the murders, before with that truant officer driver,
right,
and the time you spent in a mental hospital and didn't even know you could fight it,
right.
And it's kind of mixed in with just your these things you wrote in jail, and I think it was fascinating. I guess, did that keep you sane?
It did. Writing and meditation and my wife, those were the things that kept me alive in there, kept me from losing my mind. I've loved writing ever since I was about 12 years old. It's like it scratches an itch somewhere deep inside of you that nothing else gets to. And that was my hope with this, is that if I thought this was, just a car wreck that people would want to gawk at, then I wouldn't have wanted to put it out. I wanted to make sure it was something that stood on its own merit. And my hope is that, people will like the writing style, people will like the voice enough that they'll want to read about something other than the case.
Yeah, you guys have been humanized, though, to a point where people will and do read it and read about the story and not just say, okay, here's person A, B, and C. Like, you're people. Your personalities are out there. It really isn't just like a freak show, because a lot of people feel they know you, they can identify with you. So, I don't think you have to worry about that freak show aspect of it.
Thank you.
You mentioned your wife in there, and I saw the Anderson Cooper interview yesterday.
Right.
I was amazed to see your wedding pictures from death row. That was so strange to me, because obviously an extremely happy occasion, but it's happening on death row. What was going through your mind that day?
Just shock. A lot of it, really, at that point, I hadn't had human contact in like 7 years, something like that. We've been married, we've been together for about 17 years now, but whenever we were first married, that was the first time we'd actually gotten a touch.
Wow.
So, just that we had, it's a weird thing to know this person, to see this person all the time, to have these conversations with this person and this relationship with this person, and it's almost like you forget that you haven't even touched until you do touch them. So it was a very surreal experience.
Were people mad that you were getting married on death row?
I don't think they knew. Most people didn't know at the time. It was, the case wasn't nearly as big back then as it grew to be in later years, so most people didn't pay it any attention.
But I mean the people around death row.
Oh, yeah, the guards.
They were like,
oh, yeah, they don't like that at all.
They hate it, right?
I would imagine.
Yeah.
And also, were you ever afraid being married? Because I'm so paranoid in a relationship, like when I see a girl every day. Is it hard when you're married and you think, like, you don't know if you're ever going to get out? Like, how long is she going to stay with me? Are you constantly afraid if she doesn't call on time? Like, has she met somebody? Is she, does that ever play in your head when you're locked up?
Not in that way. What I worried about was not that Lori would ever leave, but that she would become so worn down by this situation that it would completely steal her life. She... At one point, she had to take out 2 loans just to pay off legal fees. She quit her job to work full-time on this case. She did, or had a hand in, at least 85% of the work that was done in this case. She did more work than the attorneys and the private investigators combined. So what I was scared of is that it was just going to wear her down, that she was going to reach the point where she just couldn't do it anymore.
Can we ask Lori a question? Do we have a mic for her? Because she's here. I was just curious because you have been such a big part of this. When you first heard about this case, what were was it from Paradise Lost, the documentary, or had you heard about it before?
It was from Paradise Lost.
And what did you think?
Well, I mean, there were so many questions that I had about the case, and just that were brought up from the film, and there wasn't that much out there at the time. That was in '96, so I just knew I wanted to find out more. And I knew I wanted to help Damien. And
did people question, because your family and do all these people around you question, why are you communicating with this person?
My friends were all supportive, and the only way I know how to answer that is I just didn't give him any room to question me. I knew I just was just hell-bent on, for whatever reason, I just knew this is what I wanted to do, and no one, I didn't even tell my family that for 4 years, because...
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to have a sense of be established in what I was and understand what I was doing before I put it to
the interesting part is that you really do get a stronger relationship, I think, and at least the two of you could know that it's not based on some kind of superficial thing. I mean, if anything could be taken from that, wow, I'm sure Damien knows that you authentically love him to have to go through that, and again, without the contact, without things that people normally take as a relationship not being there, there has to be something pretty strong between you two.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes, and our relationship is based on communication. It had to be. And I think, you know, so many people forget about that, or they get busy in their lives and they forget to even sit down and talk. You know, we'd sit down and talk for 3 hours, so at least a week, wrote every day, talked every day. So not that that's everything, because there's a lot more to relationships, but that's a pretty strong foundation.
Yeah. And just so you know, too, so Damien's doing book signings. I think he's doing one here Friday with Johnny Depp, who I know has been a huge supporter of yours and a friend, who's actually doing the signing with you, which is, I'm so furious. I'm going to be in dumb Columbus. I can't go there and get pictures and have fun. But it's at the Barnes & Noble here in the city. It's in Union Square at 7 o'clock. It's a talk and signing with Johnny Depp. That's a huge Barnes & Noble. Plenty of room to spread out. And the book is honestly fantastic. You talked about things in jail which I would never have thought of. Like, I'm literally almost done, and there's a part right where I just read where you talk about the mosquitoes. Like, I've never heard anybody talk about the mosquitoes in prison. But what else? What
Is
other
that a
things?
gang?
Yes, a bunch of guys with little dicks.
Jimmy.
Yeah. What other things about jail do you think that people just don't talk about?
Well, I think that is one of the things that most people wouldn't think about, because whenever, you know, most people get their information about prison from movies, and that's not going to be a very fascinating part of the movie to focus on mosquitoes.
Yeah.
But I mean, you take into things like that, like the rats. You have a rat season and a cricket season in prison, where in the winter when it gets really cold, the rats, and you're out in the middle of nowhere, you know, in the middle of all these fields, so the rats all start coming into the prison to try to get away from the cold and to try to get away from the lack of food and everything else. So you'll wake up at night. Whenever I first got there one night, I kept hearing this noise like somebody was rubbing styrofoam, and I kept thinking, what the hell is that? And then I rolled over, and there was a rat looking, you know, directly into my face. It was chewing on my hair, was what it was. You can't let your blanket touch the floor at all, or they'll climb up onto the bed with you. You can't leave anything to eat laying around, or they're going to swarm in there. That, and in the summer, for some reason, these big black crickets come in, and the whole floor at points you can't even walk without crunching them, because they're just, you know, covering everything. The mosquitoes the same way. You're in the middle of all this field. So at night, you know, they breed out there, and at night, that's one of the things that will drive you to the point of madness. You know, they're biting your lips and your eyelids, and they're buzzing in your ears while you're trying to sleep. And, you know, parts of the prison can reach 120 degrees in the summertime, so you can't put on clothes. You just lay there covered in your own sweat and filth while these things are eating you alive.
Oh my God!
And the whole time you're just going, I'm not even supposed to be here.
That's the part. It's like these people have no right to do this to me. I'm not supposed to be here.
Did you go through waves of, because I got angry watching these documentaries, especially as they went on, and your innocence became even more and more apparent. How do you deal with what should be just constant rage? What does that flow into? And
in the beginning, it was. It got to a point in the first 2 or 3 years where I would wake up in the morning furious. From the moment my eyes would open, I was just furious, and it was making the situation even worse. It was eating me alive inside, and I knew I had to find some sort of way to deal with it, and that's what made me turn to meditation. I received Jukai ordination in the Rinzai tradition of Japanese Buddhism, which is the same tradition that used to train the samurai. And that's what I turned to get control of that. Also, there's almost no medical care in prison. You know, they're not going to spend a lot of time and money taking care of someone they plan on killing. I had no choice but to turn to a lot of energy work, you know, Qigong, Reiki, things of that nature, just to deal with the pain and the sickness and suffering and everything else that I was going through. You know, if I were out and I could have went to see a doctor or something, I probably never would have devoted myself to those things the way I did in there, but I didn't have a choice.
What kind of illnesses did you have?
Oh, God, I don't even know, just because there was nothing diagnosed. I think I was becoming pre-diabetic at one point just because I was dying of thirst all the time, having to piss every 5 minutes. I would wake up in the middle of the night and my kidneys would just be hurting, but I think that was a lot due to the beating. My teeth were really bad. I had a lot of nerve damage from being hit in the face so many times. And, you know, in prison there are no root canals, there are no crowns, there are no caps, there are none of that. Your choices are live in pain or let them pull your teeth out.
Now, you took the Alfred plea. Well, obviously, it was understandable why, because you know they're going to execute you. Is there any, like, I'm watching the prosecutor in the third documentary, watching this guy fucking stand there and going, well, the lawsuit was definitely, and it's not the same prosecutor from the entire trial, but the guy who's representing the state now, I guess. But to watch them consider a lawsuit, like, how enraging is it that that's a piece of his motivation in giving you your freedom, is the fact that he doesn't want you to be able to sue for what they stole from you, which was almost 20 years of your life.
That was also another reason that I knew I had to take this deal, because he admits in West of Memphis, our documentary, that one of his considerations was the fact that were we acquitted, the three of us together collectively could have sued the state for about $60 million. I knew also they could have me stabbed to death for $50 any day of the week. You know, I wasn't going to live to see outside those walls. They were not going to pay that money, whether it was, you know, just from degenerating health conditions or them having me killed. Either way, I wasn't coming out of there alive.
Now, what would it take for you to be able to sue them? Now, I know you've signed it. To me, that's like signing a contract, like, you know, the way Luca Brasi got the band leader to sign it over. I mean, that's a gun at your head, and it's not fair to consider that a value or a viable contract. What would you need to be able to go and sue? And in this case, I think being able to sue is completely justified.
They would have to reopen the case, which they're not going to do.
Because
they don't want to pay the money.
Right. How about if you were pardoned? Is there any way, would that take a presidential pardon, or is the governor able to do anything about that?
I don't know. I think the governor probably could, but at the same time, I'm not asking for a pardon, because a pardon means you're asking for forgiveness for something wrong you've done. I haven't done anything. So I don't want shit from these people as far as a pardon is concerned.
So you're okay with the Alfred plea?
No, but right now it's the lesser of two evils. We're going to keep digging in. We're going to keep fighting, keep working on this case. You know, one of the things right now, we found out that the FBI has about 200 pages of information that no one's ever seen before. So we're trying to get a hold of that, you know, trying to invoke this FOI Act, all of that sort of stuff, to get this information turned over. And
amazing?
There's something else in there we could use.
That you have to go through hoops to get information on your own life and what you've
Well, I mean, even the DNA testing, the state said, okay, we'll pay for half of the testing if you can come up with the other half. Still, they haven't. We had to raise the entire thing. We had to pay for all of the DNA testing.
Which was how much, do you know, roughly?
I have no idea, but it was a lot. I remember, like, the initial round of testing, the very first round was $200,000.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't have that. The only way we even got that was because Henry Rollins went on a tour just to raise that money to pay for that DNA testing. You know, if not for the people that were helping us out, I would be dead right now.
What do you think? And it's probably hard to speculate, but what do you think you'd be doing right now had you not been through all of this? Had no one ever accused you of anything? You're a kid. You're growing up in you know, a small town, pretty much. What do you think you would have done? Where you'd be right now?
It's impossible to say.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I would have ended up stuck there, or I would like to think that.
Have you ever thought of what you would have liked to have done then? Like, what were kind of your dreams back then before this happened?
I wasn't absolutely positive. I loved writing, like I said, but at the same time, I would just have this feeling when I would get up in the mornings that there's got to be something more to life than this. You know, I would look at everyone around me that had just been so worn down and were already dead inside, and that looked like they were, you know, somebody's grandparents by the time they were 30. And I think there's got to be something more to life than this.
Yep. Holy shit, you sure didn't belong in small town USA like that. God damn.
There's a funny part of the book, too, where you say, like, one of the things during the trial is they took all your writings and read them, like these private things that we do as teenagers. And you said the only thing immortalized was my bad taste, which made me laugh because we've all looked back at our awful, melodramatic teenage...
Jimmy, you have some horrid things.
Dude, I wrote a poem when I was in rehab. Kevin Smith actually read it on the show. It's fucking hideous. I mean, it really is humiliating, like, to have that stuff read publicly.
Especially when it's taken out of context, you know.
Oh, man.
I mean, just having it read like that would be bad enough, but when they take it and warp it and twist it and try to make it look like something else, like you're saying something else, it makes... literally, when I first got to prison, I could not write for at least a couple years because it traumatized me so much having that done. You know, it scars you. That it took a long time, and even now it's still hard for me sometimes. If I walk up, say Lori's looking at something I've written on the computer or something, and I don't know she's doing it, and I just walk up and see it, I immediately have this feeling like I want to run.
Wow.
I have to know what's going to happen and sort of prepare myself for it, gear up for it.
And do you prepare her first? Go, look, it's just a rough draft. I mean, it's not completed.
Work in progress.
Yeah, this way you lower their expectations, so
Yeah.
if they don't like it, it's not as embarrassing.
What was the first thing you did when you got out of prison?
8. We went to, I was not ready for this. I mean, you got to take into consideration the fact that I had been in solitary confinement for almost a decade.
Right.
And then I went from a decade of solitary confinement to them saying, okay, get out. So a party probably wasn't the greatest idea.
Yeah, that's like shock.
Exactly. But that's what we did. We had a rooftop party. We went across the bridge over to Memphis, and, you know, there was a bunch of friends and family there to celebrate. So the first thing was probably eat, drink, and just try to deal with it. It was shock. For the first 2 or 3 months that I was out, I was in such a deep state of shock and trauma that it was, you know, Lori would lead me around almost like she was leading a blind person. I would walk into doors. I would walk into people on the street just because I wasn't ready for it.
Because it's a follow-up question. With that said, what do you think of the world around you?
Yeah, that's exactly
What
I was gonna
amazed
say.
you? What, like,
technological advancements?
yeah, all that
and-
stuff.
Well, as soon as I got out, they handed me an iPhone and a computer.
Holy
the
shit.
computer, I still haven't figured out a great deal about it. The iPhone I can actually use now. But it was... there are no words to even articulate it. When I went in, the last time I'd seen a computer was 1986.
Oh,
and it was basically a giant glorified typewriter for really rich people.
Yeah. Which explains that. What are your dreams like at night? When you sleep, do you remember them? Are they horrifying? Or are you just not a victim of what you went through when you dream?
I don't dream a great deal at night. Whenever I do, the ones I remember are usually the bad ones.
Yeah.
Whenever I first got out, the first few months, I would wake up in the night screaming a lot.
Wow.
It was, you know, scaring the hell out of Lori. You know, she wakes
bet.
up in the middle of the night with some guy in the room screaming. So that was kind of hard to deal with.
What about when you first went in? Like, would you remember dreaming then? And were you out and kind of free?
Yes, and that was the wire.
Oh, then you wake up. Because
right there.
a lot of times we've talked about having dreams of
The
you're
opposite
in
way.
trouble.
Right.
Like I've had dreams where I'm in trouble, I'm in jail, or you're in a horrible situation. You wake up and you're like, oh my God, thank
It's just
God,
a
I
dream.
just got out of trouble in the blink of an eye. And you, on the other hand, it would be horrifying to be free, going about your life, and then wake up and realize you're a caged animal.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And you, I mean, you never see an end to it. It just...
No light.
It
at
got
the
to
end
the
of tunnel.
point by the end where I couldn't even remember what it was like to be out anymore. You know, I spent half my life in there. I was 18 when I went in. It's been 18 years in. And I got to the point where I could remember, you know, for example, that pizza had one time been my favorite food, but I couldn't remember what it tasted like anymore. And that's when you start to get really scared because you can't envision or picture anything outside this concrete box for the next 1,000 years.
You're a very well-spoken guy and a very lucid and good writer. But when you were 18 and all of a sudden you're on the stand fighting for your life, is there anything when you look back on it that you're like, I wish I would have answered this differently or said that differently or had in those moments, like knowing that you actually were going to be convicted and that it could, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently or, you know, again, as an 18-year-old, it's kind of hard to...
I could probably pick it apart and do that, but at the same time, I mean, the overall answer would have to be no, just because I know it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what I did. They had their minds made up before we ever walked in that courtroom.
You were the Satan-worshipping murderer. And whatever they had to do to put you in that mold, that's what they were going to do.
As a kid, did you believe in the system before you went through all this, or?
I didn't think a great deal about it. I guess, you know, most of my education came the way most people's do, through watching TV shows.
Sure.
So you think the cops are the good guys, and if there is a bad one, he's like the rogue, the bad apple in the bunch. Whenever you actually go in, you realize that the good one is actually the very rare thing, or at least in Arkansas it was. At the time we were arrested, the West Memphis Police Department, the whole police department, was under investigation from the FBI.
Did you have a rock solid alibi that was just discredited by these people?
Yeah, they didn't care.
Right.
For example, your family comes up and says, well, he was here at this time, and they'll say, well, this is his family. They're going to lie for him. And the jury says, oh, that's right. And that's it. That's the end of your alibi.
What do you think of Jesse and what he said at the time?
Yeah. Jesse was a mentally handicapped kid. He had an IQ of 72. I think they said at the time we were arrested.
Like E-Rock, yeah.
Yeah, he operated somewhere between the level of like an 8 to 10-year-old child.
And he obviously confessed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that it's just...
Did that frustrate the hell out of you? Like, oh my God, what are you doing?
In a way, yeah, but in a way also, I mean, I knew what they did to me, the way they treated me.
Right.
By the time it was over, I wanted to say whatever they wanted me to say just so they would stop. So I can't even imagine somebody with an IQ of 72 going through something like that.
It is amazing because you never can imagine yourself put in a situation where you would agree to something that didn't happen, and to put yourself at such peril because of that. But when they wear you down like that, I guess you're only human. Yeah.
It really is possible to reach a point where you'll just say whatever they want. I mean, look how we finally got out.
Yeah.
We signed a paper. Basically, it's a guilty plea. That's what it all comes down to. I mean, it's a special kind of guilty plea where you still get to maintain your innocence. In effect, it's a way so that you can't sue them. But in the end, it's still the same thing that Jesse Miskelly did. It's saying, okay, I'll say I did whatever you want me to say if you'll just stop.
Did you ever, there was one part too, where there was the girlfriend you had run away with and were first arrested for and sent to a mental hospital because her parents hated you because you were, this is before the murders. And then you said, I guess that have you ever seen her again? Because you said the last time you touched her was a kiss in the police car, and that was just such a final moment.
That was it. The only time I ever saw her after that. What I heard was that her parents sent her to some sort of deprogram. I mean, they were hardcore fundamentalist, backwoods Christians. Just like a step above the snake handling, poison drinking guys. Right. So whenever they found out that we had been having sex, to them that was like the ultimate evil. So they sent her to some sort of deprogramming center to get her back on the straight and narrow. The only time I ever saw her again after that was whenever she was on the stand during the trial. That was it.
Oh, she testified. I didn't know that. Was it positive for you, or was it negative, or was it neither?
Neither one, really. They just brought her on the stand to say they asked her, "Did I have a knife?" And she said yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I know you don't know. No one has any answers on it, really. But in purely an opinion, do you think that Terry Hobbs had something to do with it? I mean, I know it's hard to accuse someone because of all the stuff with you and Mark Byers that went back and forth, but it doesn't look good after that third documentary.
No, it doesn't. And people say, well, you want to be careful of doing the same thing to him that was done to you, but at the same time, our entire case against him, basically, when you see the movie West of Memphis, this is pretty much the case we would have put on if there would have been a hearing, if there would have been a trial. So everything that we point towards him is all physical evidence. It's all either DNA or it's eyewitnesses, things of that nature. It's not hearsay. It's not ghost stories. It's not the fact that he read Stephen King novels or wore black clothes.
Right, yeah.
He says, for example, that he never even saw the victims the day they were murdered.
Right.
Well, 3 witnesses have come forward and said they saw him with the victims within an hour of the time they were murdered. We did a lot of other stuff that didn't make it into the film also just because there was nothing we could do with it. Like, for example, we found the truck he had at the time of the murders, and luminol tested it, and there was blood in the truck, but it was so old and degraded it couldn't be identified. Same thing in his kitchen. We went into the house, luminol tested, there was blood under the linoleum in the kitchen, but it was so old and degraded that, it couldn't be identified.
DNA couldn't do anything with it.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And you had there's also something where, are you and Jason speaking again? I know that afterwards you guys had a falling out over...
Well, technically it wasn't between Jason and I. It was between me and the people making this movie. At one point, you know, I had read the movie script and it was absolutely horrendous. I think it was written by the same people who wrote like Hellraiser 6, something like that. So I started reading this thing and it was horrible. And when I started speaking out against it, I started getting, you know, phone calls. They're leaving messages on my phone saying, if you're interfering with our movie, we're going to sue you because you're interfering with our right to make a living and all this kind of stuff. So I was put in a position where I couldn't even defend myself. I was not supposed to talk to anyone involved with this movie about this movie, which included Jason, because Jason was working on it. So, you know, it wasn't actually between Jason and I, it was between me and the movie makers, and it just sort of got shifted to make it look like it was between Jason and I. But, you know, finally we just started talking again. I said, you know, if you want to try to sue me, sue me. You know.
Yeah, that would be a little silly. That would look silly in court.
Crazy.
I mean, one victim basically suing another one.
Yeah.
Just seems terrible.
It seems, and rightly so, that you've been all consumed with this throughout the time where you were in prison and getting out and afterwards. But what do you guys do for fun? What, like, to get away from this completely? What do you two like to do just to have a good time?
I spent a lot of time at the tattoo parlor.
Yeah.
For me, that's it's really, you know, it may be physically painful, but it's for some reason it's really psychologically and emotionally soothing. And also that's where most of my friends are. You know, the only friends that I've been making since I got out of prison. So I spend a lot of time there. We watch movies together. Laura and I, we go see movies.
What type of movies you like?
The only thing if it doesn't have a monster in it, I don't watch it.
Horror films, right?
Every now and then, she's actually banned me from seeing her movies. Like, she likes to see French movies and things, and she says I ruin it.
Why, do you just the whole time?
Yeah, that, or, you know, toss and turn, and it gets to the point where the chair feels like it's made out of needles. And like, you know, Jesus Christ, it feels like this movie's been on for 6 hours. When is this going to end?
You know what's bad when he goes, this is the worst thing I've ever had in my life. Sitting and watching this movie.
Well, let's again plug the book.
Oh my God!
Again,
yeah.
it's an unbelievably well written book, and it's not just rehashed facts of the case. The case is talked about, but it's not just Paradise Lost in print. I mean, it's a totally different things about Damien's experiences in prison and before, and I knew almost none of this, and I had seen all 3 documentaries, and it's called Life After Death, and it's on sale now. It's a great fucking book. It's really, really brilliantly written. And you can go to DamienEchols.com to get any type of signing info. But if you're in New York this Friday, he's doing a signing with Johnny Depp, who really was a supporter for a long time. And I love the fact that he's showing up. It's 7 o'clock, Barnes & Noble, Union Square. And you can there's a talk, and then there's going to be a signing. And you're doing them with Dave Navarro, Henry Rollins.
Right.
There's too many to list. But wherever you live, if you're listening right now, we're heard all over the country, you probably can go to a signing and hear Damien and talk and get a book signed, because it's a great read, man.
Amazing.
Thank you
What
so
an
much.
amazing story. It's almost like if it was a movie, you wouldn't believe it. It's too crazy to believe that could happen to a person.
Dude, you make people question everything. Like you said, the cops are the good guys, and all of these things that you're kind of born and raised to believe. And it's like it's just like all of that is shattered reading this.
Yeah. Well, it was shattered for me living through it. You know, there's so many aspects of it that are hard to get your mind around whenever you're going through it, and it just it psychologically destroys you. It destroys the foundation of everything you think you know about life.
Yeah, not just your personal life and what it does to you directly, the physical abuse and mental abuse and whatnot, but yeah, it's a fracturing of everything that's supposed to be right.
Yeah.
The whole construct of the system just means shit.
And it makes you realize people are crazy.
Yeah.
Do you hate when people try to relate to you and have no experience like it? Like, dude, I was waiting for a bus one time. It was late. And you're like, you asshole.
Yeah, I actually had someone tell me sometimes, they wondered who had it worse because, I'm in prison, but at the same time, I don't have to worry about things like buying cat food.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I'd hate to have to go out and buy cat food.
That's a real lemons to lemonade attitude, isn't it?
My glass is half full.
Well, they're saying Damien has to go because of other press.
A lot of press.
Very cool,
This was
man.
amazing,
I mean,
Damien.
Thank
it
you
was a
guys
pleasure
so
meeting
much.
you, sir.
Thank you
Ever
so
since
much for having me
I saw
today.
the first documentary, I thought the story was fascinating, and you really came off even at that time like a very smart guy and like, what the fuck is he doing in this situation? To see you pop out on the other end of this with any bit of sanity is amazing. So just amazing to have you here. Thanks
you
so
so
much.
much.
Life
for
After
having me
Death.
today.
I'm sorry, man. Life After Death. It's in bookstores now. You can get it online. You can order it. It's a fucking great book.
Very cool.
Damien Echols, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're listening to the Opie and Anthony Show. The Opie and Anthony Show. Sirius XM.